Bartenders of Reddit, what was the weirdest, craziest thing you have overheard while making someone's drink? My favorite regular, like came in every damn day, was a retired anesthesiologist who also opened and sold a practice. He was legit fucking rich. He was also in his late 60s and ugly as sin. He spent a lot of time in Europe. He had two favorite prostitutes, one in Germany and one in France. He literally went every month and spent crazy money taking them on vacations, gifts etc. One day he brought in 3 jewelry boxes with bracelets in each, one sapphire, one emerald and a diamond tennis bracelet. He asked me to pick out which to give to whom, and since I literally knew everything about these women at this point, I went ahead and helped. Now he always drank 2 light drafts and never ever left a tip, literally not once. He didn't even sit down, he stood against my bar counter. That day, I didn't notice him leave after he squared his tab. It was kinda busy. He left the emerald bracelet box on top of his bill and he wrote, "For always listening without judgment. Thanks for the last tip, here's yours." He passed away on his trip. He had pancreatic cancer and didn't tell anyone. I went to his funeral services wearing the bracelet. I've not worn it since, but I have it and the bill in my treasure box in my closet. I had it appraised. It wasn't that expensive, which made me laugh my ass off. Cheap bastard. I miss you, Dennis. I hope you're at peace. Holy shit. Thank you for the awards. Dennis would love it, knowing people are reading about him with his vain ass self. May he rest easy. I hope to see him again one day. Seriously, I didn't even answer Op's question lol. Thank you so much. Ex-bartender, but my first day on my first bartending gig I was making drinks for another customer and a gentleman I had recently served fell off his bar stool onto the ground. Just the loudest sound, the weight of a body falling on the ground. I swung around and it took me seconds to see the guy on the ground. This was a rather decent-sized busy local pub and it was during dinner time, so people just started freaking out. I ran around the bar to the man and I had my coworker call 911 while I fully trained in CPR/first aid for years, tried to see what I could do to help. It took moments to figure out he was having stroke symptoms and he basically died in my arms. It was absolutely awful way to start a lot of things. It was a shock even more due to how others reacted. No one helped, instead we had people dine and dash, people mad that the poor guy collapsed and ruined their dinner. As one couple yelled at me while I'm trying to help this poor guy. Just awful stuff. I found out later he was a regular. He literally had only recently come in for a nightcap from work, which he did frequently, only had a couple sips of his gin and tonic. I'll never forget it. Not a bartender, but while bussing a table, the man at the adjacent booth was arguing with his wife or partner for cutting the bread wrong and ordered her to pass him her hand under the table. Heard a loud crack and her stifle a cry and saw her finger turn purple and she hid it in her sleeve. Nonchalantly went to tell my manager and then have a panic attack in the bathroom. Have a history with abuse. When I came back out, manager was looking disappointedly at an empty booth with some cash left on it. Fucked up stuff s. I worked in an open kitchen. A friend came in with a new girl and sat right in front of the line. They're having such a nice time. So happy for them. About halfway through their second bottle of wine, his date's loose-fitting shoulder shruggy type shirt falls a little too down and her bare titty is fully out. He doesn't even notice. Sitting close on the same side of the booth. It's hilarious, but like, oh snap, I get the server to go talk to them and let her know. Pretty awesome. Same server also saved a man's life after realizing he was choking to death. He left the restaurant cause he was embarrassed he was choking. She followed him and got him as he was collapsing outside. Lil 1-2 Heimlich and she popped it out. She is still my very good friend and a total fucking legend. The craziest was when a man ordered the filet well done and refused to have it butterflied. That's like a 30-minute cook time. He ate it with ketchup. The second was two older guys celebrating, one of them getting out of jail. Over the course of the night I learned that he was arrested for DUI when he was parked beside train tracks. The other guy asked what he did with the crack rocks that he shoved in his ass. Didn't get to hear the answer, and that he was lucky he hadn't been caught hauling the gas cans to his business partner's house. So we used to have this regular that would come in with his wife every Tuesday, and he'd always tip decent, and then he'd come in with his younger hotter neighbor the next day and tip real well. We could always hear him saying crap like "I'll leave my wife for you," etc. She was a regular as well and constantly flirting with other guys, and she brought in her own man, and on occasion, I had a regular shit himself once. He was on a bunch of meds and came in to drink. His divorce finalized and he was a mess. He shat his pants, proceeded to pay up, left to change, came back, and wanted to drink again. We had a guy faint and fall off a high chair. He ran a marathon and instead of water, he drank beer, had to call 911 and all that stuff. He was okay. I've heard some crazy shit too, but it's hard to remember it all. We had a guy claim to be a former brigadier in the British Army and to have served with various other defense, security organizations in theaters around the world. He claimed to have committed war crimes in multiple countries, including the mercy killing of infants in Serbia, the torture and murder of some alleged rapists in Angola, and, I think, it was pretty hazy at this point, the murder of a New Zealand whistleblower to cover up war crimes in Afghanistan. He also carried about $5 in cash in his wallet and spoke with the most cockney rasp I've ever heard. Okay, buckle in kids. This happened in 2002. The world was a much gentler place with worse music and a declining cinema. A man about 50 or so walks in and orders a wild turkey straight and requests Frank Sinatra be played for the next half an hour. Before I go to make the drink, I play the oldies station which makes him happy. He tells me he's been married for 30 years and 8 days and the only thing his wife wants from him is his pension. No kids, no parents or siblings left. He snogged the first, and the second. While I was pouring the third, he tells me he has a date with his wife to watch Chicago in the theater. He tells me to make it a double. While I'm pouring it, he mumbles under his breath, "That'll be enough courage to shoot myself before having to watch that fucking movie." The next weekend, the Oklahoma paper posted his obituary. Bartender here. 18+ years in the business. Nothing shocks me, like my limit of crazy would be pretty up there. Literally last night on my shift, woman with I assumed to be her son, nephew, she had called in food but it wasn't ready. We told her 30 minutes to 45, so she shows up in 15 minutes. I tell her this and she immediately throws her arms up and demands a Cosmo because she is starving and the kid is starving. Making her Cosmo, the kid comes up to the bar and overhearing the woman yell behind him, "Go ahead babe. Tell them you want it on the rocks." Kid orders a chocolate milk on the rocks. Don't do this. Don't send your fucking kid up to a bar. It is not cute. It's for adults, not for little kids to spin around and make a mess of my bar. I make him 1. Then 2, food isn't ready still. Woman screams that the kid is now going to throw up because he is so hungry. I cannot make the food come out any faster than it is. As she is saying this, her food comes out. She is handed her food quickly and as she is storming out she is screaming, "He threw up, he threw up." I hope you are happy, then left. There was a nice pile of barf on the table. Class act, normal night. Bartender in downtown Memphis before the bandy. During a lunch shift I had to listen to 2 douchebag lawyers take turns one-upping each other on who got the worst person off of charges. The only specific I recall was one of them bragging about a domestic abuser he got off after he was arrested for beating his wife and son so bad they had to go to the hospital. It was their laughing that disturbed me the most. They tipped well. I overheard a woman who worked in the explaining to her date about a time that she helped a couple who had been having sex, and his dick literally fractured inside her. It's a real thing, and let me tell you that story was rough. Former bartender, there were quite a few regulars I was fond of, but there was one in particular that I couldn't let my guard down around. He was off in some way and I immediately didn't trust him. Slightly older than middle age. He introduces himself and I get his drink, as you do, and after a bit he starts on about his life. Wife left him near a decade ago with 2 little ones to raise on his own. Must have been rough. I say, yeah. But I've worked hard and done right by my kids. Well, cheers to that. Over time I hear him tell the same story the same way to several others, most who had heard it many times before. One evening he comes in later than usual. "Hi, how ya doin'?" I say, though I can tell he is in a foul mood. No harm happens to the best of us. He sits near enough to the well with another gent I didn't see in there much. Other gents seemed to be having lady troubles and shifty regular had all the wrong answers. In a hushed and angry tone he said he took care of his own problem 10 years ago and made sure no one would ever find the bitch. I once had to ask a woman to remove her infant from the bar top. She put them on the floor. I really don't miss bartending. Preface this with, I don't really listen to current music too much and especially hip-hop. I was closing up one night and in walks this black guy with long dreads and tons of gold around his neck. He comes up to me and orders a Long Island and goes straight to the bathroom. Seconds later, his entourage comes barreling in with his manager leading them, and comes up to me. "Did you see a guy with tons of gold around his neck?" Pointed to the bathroom and the manager goes, "Did he order a drink?" We're at the wrong place. They needed to be in the other steakhouse right next to us. I hadn't started the drink so he cancelled it and then the guy comes out the bathroom and his manager takes him out the front door with like 2 bodyguards. Next thing I know, the 2 young hostesses are running up to me and shrieking about, "Do you know what that is?" "Nope. Bro, that was Waka Flocka bro, I have no idea who that." Turns out he had just finished headlining this outdoor festival an hour ago and was coming out to dinner. Shrug. I overheard a bar regular tell the beautiful black girl at my work that they didn't make women like you in my day. So cringe. This was a request directed toward me. I don't want the woman-sized drink. I want the man-sized drink. So, I gave him the smaller size. Whoops. Making a custom mixed drink for a friend of the owner. Overhear him talking in the guy's ear next to him. I called the stay trape in a glass. You can barely tell it's liquor. Never have I so badly wanted someone off of my bar. But dude had VIP access. Told the barmaiden so that she could help me keep an eye on the creep. Didn't work there much longer. I'm a barista, not a bartender, but God, I've heard some weird conversations. Most memorable is when one of our regular customers comes in later in the afternoon, gets her regular drink and we exchange small talk. Super sweet person, always up for a chat while she waited. Then our manager comes out and starts having a quick chat with while I start making her drink. She immediately pulled him back from the counter slightly and starts whispering about how she's seen spies working in the car park of this shopping center and that we were being watched. Think like Stranger Things Star Court Mall operation. She was visibly concerned according to my manager. I walked her coffee over and immediately was back to regular conversation and smiles. Saw her heaps after and never happened again. Also not so much a conversation, but I have found underwear left on a plate while clearing a table before. The 2 people sitting at the table did not have children with them yet. Left a kid's pair of blue undies on their plate hidden under a serviette. Not a bartender, but when I was in my early 20s my best friend and I would go out to eat. If others were sitting close enough, we would start telling each other some outlandish story that we would make up as we went along. We knew the people nearby were listening when they stopped talking and got really quiet. Most stories you overhear are probably true, but beware bored youth. This was actually after I had clocked out and sat down at the other side of the bar for my shifty. An older couple I had served earlier had come back. Bar was right next to a theater, so we'd usually serve the same customers twice on show nights, and got dinner and were talking about what they'd ordered. She says she got the shrimp dish, and that apparently didn't sit well with her husband as he just started unloading on her in a way that had my coworker and I just shocked. Ordering the Cameron's El Diablo was apparently enough for him to start griping about taking care of their granddaughter because his wife's daughter was hooked on meth, and unable to do so herself. Long story short, she says, "You know what? Why don't you walk back to the Airbnb and I'm going to drive home." He left. She paid, and told us this was their first night out in about a year and she had been thinking of divorcing him, and that conversation made her mind up. Watched the marriage dissolve over dinner pretty much. This doesn't exactly answer Op's question, but it's pretty damn funny. I was having some lunch seated at a bar. This place wasn't super nice, but it was nice. Two guys sat at the bar and it seemed pretty obvious that this was a fancy place for them. The bar had a nice display for their bottle of Louis XIII cognac. One of them says, "Hey look, it's that Napoleon liquor." Years ago, while I'm tending bar in a smoky old gin mill on a brutal winter's night, an old well-dressed man and a disheveled much younger man came wandering in from the snow. Something's not right about them. I hear them talk some nonsense about angels and wings. Very strange. Finally, the younger guy asks his companion, "How old are you, anyway, Clarence?" When I hear the old guy say, 293, next May. I knew it was time for them to go. "That is it," I said. "Out you two pixies go, through the door or out the window." They left and never came back. It was many years ago, but that's how I remember it. I'm not a bartender, but I was accidentally eavesdropping and this guy was talking to his friends about some waitress that was serving the table over from me and thought they were gonna get lucky. Not the craziest thing I've heard, but a motorbike driver was ready to pay for his meal with his daughter on his side. He paid with his phone. So he put his phone against the machine and what do I see as his background picture? A full naked woman with tits and ass all very visible. I decided to just act normal. I knew a guy that was an amazing bartender. He'd get random BS drink names all the time and he'd make them perfectly. "Can I get a sexy mosquito?" "Sure. What color?" "Pink." "I can do pink." Combines random shit. "Here you go. It's good." "Yeah, I know, just like last time." It was always hilarious. My absolute favorite, since it was rather innocent. Most things I remember are usually sexist and or violent. Two women, early 20s, dressed a bit too posh for this kind of club, just a notch away from being drunk enough to break their heels, ankles and quite possibly necks with each next step, but blonde enough to be admitted by our horny toad of a chief bouncer. Stumble, stagger to the bar, maintaining the majestic grace of two deer, albeit newborn ones taking their first steps. They managed to find two bar stools with minimal casualties. Then they drank. We thought after like the first drink, they'd reached the point where we could cut them off and send them home. Nope, vodka lemon after vodka lemon, they would not get more drunk, always on the line. Gotta admit I was almost impressed, until one screamed into the other's ear, "This place sucks. Let's go to name. Way cooler." "Yeah, fuck this. I know a bouncer there, we'll get in for free." They chugged their drinks and actually managed something resembling a dignified storming off. Before I could mention that club name would not charge an entry fee that night anyways. I was rather certain of this, since that club never charges an entry fee. I was literally working the bar at club named this moment. We got a good laugh and it became a running joke amongst stuff after that. this doesn't exactly answer Op's question, but it's pretty damn funny. I was having some lunch seated at a bar. This place wasn't super nice, but it was nice. Two guys sat at the bar and it seemed pretty obvious that this was a fancy place for them. The bar had a nice display for their bottle of Louis XIII cognac. One of them says, "Hey look, it's that Napoleon liquor."